Picture this, a curve in the road, a change in plans. Well, what do you say? With the all-new Audi Q3, the answer's always yes. Yes to adventure. Yes to escape. Yes to performance. Yes to comfort. Yes to right now. Because saying yes without hesitation, that's real luxury. The all-new Audi Q3, made for the yes life.
Total Wine & More is one of those places where I always find something I love and usually something new. I was in my local store recently, asked for a bourbon recommendation, and ended up loving it. And honestly, the prices make it easy to say yes to grabbing a little extra, like my go-to bottle of Cabernet. With the largest selection and the lowest prices, there's always something that catches your eye. Shop Total Wine & More in-store or online and love what you find. Spirits not sold in Virginia, North Carolina. Drink responsibly. B21.
That ugly red couch you've had for a decade? It's been living with you way longer than you ever thought it would. Because let's face it, great quality furniture just feels out of reach. Or it used to. Until you found HomeSense. The days of overpaying for good taste are done. Now, you can fill your home with the standout pieces you've coveted but couldn't afford. And you can finally kick that sad sofa straight to the curb. Welcome to HomeSense, the home of no compromise.
Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill, too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
If you're in Austin, you might grab some world-famous barbecue, take a tour of the Texas Capitol building, or spend an evening strolling down Congress Avenue. But the city also boasts another attraction that's not so typical. It's home to around 1.5 million bats. The interesting inhabitant is actually the largest urban bat colony in the world. Between March and November, the small mammals live under the Congress Avenue Bridge, sleeping throughout the day and awakening at night. During these months, thousands of people come to watch the winged creatures emerge from their man-made cave and fly out into the starry sky. Austin even has a yearly bat festival that celebrates the species. While the bats draw large crowds today, this space wasn't built for them. It was created by accident, says Peter Alagona, an associate professor of environmental studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara. He's also the author of The Accidental Ecosystem: People and Wildlife in American Cities.
Back in the 1980s, the city of Austin, Texas, went about retrofitting a bridge that crosses Lady Bird Lake, the Congress Avenue Bridge. And when the bridge was retrofitted and rebuilt, some spaces were left between joints on the underside of the bridge to allow the concrete to flex at different temperatures and essentially to provide the bridge with more strength given variable weather conditions. But it turned out that those joints that were left at the bottom of the bridge were perfect roosting places for Mexican free-tailed bats. There had been a lot of habitat loss of bat habitat in the caves all around that part of Texas. And so bats started to show up and to roost in the undercarriage of the Congress Avenue Bridge.
And when the bats first arrived, some residents of Austin felt nervous and wary of these new neighbors.
They thought that bats were dangerous, they carried diseases, they were pests, they should be eradicated. But over time, people started to realize through education, through research, through other kinds of public campaigns that these bats actually weren't harming people and that they were kind of amazing. And in fact, that they were eating millions of insects, including mosquitoes, that swarmed around these areas at night in the summertime. And so today, people regard them as allies, as animals that are providing a service by eliminating insect pests in the community, and it's kind of the mascot of the city.
The bats of Austin are just one example of a growing number of species that are migrating into urban areas. You might have seen this influx in recent years in your own community. Possibly more deer, coyotes, birds, or another animal entirely. But you might be wondering, why are these species moving in now? To fully answer this question, we have to go back to a time before cities. Why did humans of the past choose to settle and start building in these areas specifically?
If you look at where most of our biggest cities are located, they're located in areas that were convenient for harvesting natural resources. They were convenient for travel and transportation. They were often at the boundaries between two different kinds of ecosystems, land and sea, mountains and plains, freshwater and saltwater. New York is a perfect example of that, as a city that's right at the boundary of all these different kinds of ecosystems. And so because of that, we built our cities in some of the places that before the cities were there were richest in wildlife.
Some of the largest U.S. cities today, including Chicago, L.A., Miami, and New York, lie near a body of water and have the right terrain, weather, and resources that create hospitable living conditions. Hundreds of years ago, these same areas were some of the most biologically rich habitats for species. But this all changed as humans ramped up development during the Industrial Revolution and eliminated wildlife. Green spaces turned to concrete jungles filled with shops, factories, and skyscrapers. Domesticated animals like cows, pigs, and chickens were bustled in for food production. For many years, cities were dirty and packed to the brim.
By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, those animals were moved out of the cities as part of public health programs and efforts to clean up and create more sanitary cities during what we call the Progressive Era in American history. And then there was this period, during around maybe the 1920s, 30s, 40s, when cities had fewer animals in them of any kind than really ever before. The wildlife had been driven out maybe decades or a century earlier. The domesticated animals had largely been moved out or brought into homes in the cases of dogs, many dogs and cats. And so there was this brief period when we had relatively few animals in our cities, and that created openings after World War II as cities became leafier, people planted trees, created more parks, did things like this that enabled some species that had been existing at relatively low levels and people had been trying to conserve in the countryside to start to move back into, for example, new suburbs that were growing around many cities at that point.
Today, U.S. cities are cleaner, have more parks and trees, and there are more conservation efforts in place to protect wildlife. Alagona says that cities also draw in a lot of resources that inadvertently attract species.
Cities are packed full of food and water and infrastructure, places to hide and roost and nest, that many natural areas around them don't quite have on that level. And so for wild creatures that can avoid the hazards that cities pose, like cars and pollution in some cases, they can actually access some of those rich resources that cities pull in, and that gives them an opportunity to thrive and to reach levels and population densities that they don't reach anywhere else, including in their native natural habitats.
From eagles to sea mammals, there have been quite a few interesting species that have seen a resurgence in the last several decades.
People would have not expected sea lions and seals when they were at their lowest population levels ever in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to rebound to the level they did and then to start showing up in every harbor around the country. And yet they did. And so now we have marine mammals that have returned to urban areas like harbors that would not have been predicted to do so. In New York Harbor, people have started in recent years to see whales that haven't been seen in that area close to the city, in some cases, a century or more.
Another big example of the evolution of wildlife is the prevalence of coyotes in modern urban landscapes. Stanley Gehrt is a professor of wildlife ecology at The Ohio State University. He studies the urban ecology of mammals, and one particular focus of his is the long-term study of thousands of coyotes in Chicago. Gehrt says that coyotes have adapted in many ways to the challenges that cities pose.
They're fairly unique about this, so they have to actually cross roads. Even in some of the more natural areas, they still have to be able to cross roads and learn traffic patterns. And so they will figure out where are the best crossing points, and they'll understand traffic volume and traffic speeds, and they'll scale their movements according to that. The other thing that they do to try to avoid us and to make it easier to cross roads is they become more nocturnal as they move into the more highly developed areas. So it helps them to avoid us, but then also the traffic volume drops off after midnight in most areas, and so that gives them a little safer crossing.
Across cities, coyotes typically hunt birds, rodents, and deer. In Chicago, they've helped keep some bird populations in check.
The coyotes do help to control the population growth of certain animals that become nuisances for us, such as Canada geese, which become overabundant in cities. Coyotes are the only effective predators on goose nests, and so they're able to help control the population. And in a similar way, they are also predators on deer fawns, and white-tailed deer also become overabundant in urban areas because of the lack of predation. And so coyotes help to control their numbers. And that actually helps us quite a bit because deer actually are a threat to us in terms of deer auto collisions.
While coyotes have several ecological benefits, there are some people that fear this animal and other species moving into their communities in larger numbers. Gehrt says that it is possible to coexist, but the public may need to be more cognizant of certain things.
Maybe not letting our pets run loose in certain areas at certain times of the year, or controlling our garbage or the food that we leave out. By making some small adjustments in our lifestyles to accommodate them, it kind of introduces this notion of tolerance and allowing some coexistence to occur with species that normally we didn't have to live with decades ago.
Alagona says if you do encounter wildlife in your town or city and you're concerned, don't call the police.
Police officers often have better things to do, and most of them aren't trained to respond specifically to these kinds of situations. So calling Fish and Game, people who are experts in the field and who can assess the situation, is a good idea in that case. But if the animal is acting normal, if it's avoiding people, if it's just going about its business, then it's probably not a threat to anybody, and it's best to just leave it alone. And as a matter of fact, that coyote that you may be concerned about is probably out there eating rodents and other pests that people dislike having in their yards, gophers, things like that, and providing an ecological service to us that we sometimes don't appreciate because we think of them as a potential threat and not a benefit.
For centuries, humans designed cities to keep nature at a distance. But in many ways, the lines are blurring again. As species adapt to bridges, parks, and backyards, urban areas are becoming shared spaces. How communities respond will help shape whether this resurgence becomes a source of conflict or a model for coexistence. To find out more about this topic and our guests, Peter Alagona and Stanley Gehrt, visit viewpointsradio.org. This segment was written and produced by Amirah Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jay Silvers. I'm Marty Peterson.
With the all-new Audi Q3, the answer's always yes. Yes to adventure. Yes to escape. Yes to right now. The all-new Audi Q3, made for the yes life.
There's a difference between liking a house and actually getting it. Redfin is built to close that gap. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. So when you find a home you love, you're not a step behind when it's time to make an offer. That means less watching great homes disappear and more zeroing in on the one you'll actually end up calling home. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
At Nature's Bounty, the belief is simple. You already have a brilliant body. Supplements just help support your journey. For over 50 years, Nature's Bounty has offered vitamins and supplements to help you eat, sleep, thrive, repeat. From magnesium glycinate for heart and muscle support to hair growth capsules for fuller, thicker hair. And probiotics with 20 billion live cultures for digestion. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature to thrive. Learn more at naturesbounty.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this track to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.